Welcome to your walkthrough tutorial on how to make this double layered silk mini dress. This is an intermediate sewing pattern and we use 1/4 inch seam allowance unless otherwise specified. After you've cut out all your bust pieces, you should have 4 inner cups and 4 outer cups. 2 of them are going to be for the lining and 2 will be for the outer layer. I'm using the same fabric for both. The first step is to put a pin in both the notch on the inner cup and the outer cup. This is just going to be a guide to make sure that everything is sewn together perfectly. Place the good side of the inner cup on the good side of the outer cup and line up those pins that you have. That's going to be your center pin. So you can pin that together, and we're also going to put a pin at the top and a pin at the bottom of the seam. So insert the seam and it will look a little something like this. Make sure you press with an iron. That's going to be very, very important for almost every single step of this dress. Next, we're moving on to the front shoulder strap and back shoulder strap. I already have one side pinned, but let's do the other side together. Starting at one end of the strap, you're going to fold the good side in on itself, move to the other side, pop a pin in there, and then move to the center, and then go ahead and spread out pins throughout the rest of the strap. Satin and silk have the tendency to shift while you're sewing, so putting pins throughout is really important for this dress. Repeat for that little baby back strap, and then go ahead and sew and serge those seams closed. Flip your straps right sides out. I'm going to add a link in the description if you don't know how to do that, and then place the straps along that center seam of your outer cups. I like to line up the seam of the strap so it's facing away from the center of the cups. Place the good side of the lining cups on top of the good sides of the outer cups, and we're going to start to pin everything together. When it comes to the front shoulder strap, you're going to align that with the center seams on both the lining and the outer layer, sandwiching it together. It is really, really important that you make sure you're actually sewing the strap down. If you want to pull it out 1/4 inch extra, just to really make sure, go ahead and do that. Then you can spread pins throughout the rest of the cup. We are going to leave that outer side seam of the cup as well as the bottom seam completely unpinned and unsewn. Depending on how you cut your fabric, there might have been a little bit of shifting. As you can see, I have some excess fabric, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim that off, then sew and serge everything we have pinned. Now we're moving on to the back strap. You're going to have 4 back straps. 2 of them are going to be the lining and 2 will be your outer fabric. Place the good sides of the lining and the outer fabric together, and you are going to have pins from those notches. Those notches show you where the back shoulder straps are going to be put in. Turn the back shoulder straps good sides out, and then you're going to feed it through the O-ring. Fold the back shoulder strap in half, and this is when we are going to place it at that notch in the back strap. Slide the back shoulder strap in between the lining and the outer fabric, and you're going to pin it in place where you had that original notch. You can go ahead and spread pins throughout the entire back strap except for the side seam, and repeat for the other back strap. You're going to go ahead, sew and serge this entire line that I'm pointing out with my finger while leaving that side seam untouched and open so we can flip it inside out after. When you are sewing over that back shoulder strap, it's a good idea to just go back and forth over it a little bit. There's going to be a lot of force pulling that strap, so we really want to make sure that it's sewn down and not going anywhere. Press both of your bust pieces with the iron to make sure that they're laying completely flat, and now we're going to start to connect them to the front skirt. So you're going to take the front top skirt piece and fold it in half so we can find where that center mark is going to be. Place a pin in there and make sure the good side of the skirt fabric is facing upwards. Place the outer bust fabric facing the good side of the front top skirt fabric. Align both of the inner cups so that they're touching each other at that center pin mark. Starting from the inner corner of the bust pieces, you can slowly start to place pins all along that seam. I like to start in the inner cups and work my way to the side seams because, again, sometimes your fabric can shift, and we're going to make sure that everything fits perfectly by doing it this way. Because you're going to be sewing down 3 layers right now, the pins are super important, and make sure that everything is lining up before you sew and serge the seam. We're going to sew 1 cup at a time, and we're going to start from the inner point of the cup. As you can see, the inner points of both of the cups are really marginally overlapping, and that's just to account for the seam allowance. So I'm actually starting on the other cup that we're technically not sewing down yet, but I just want to make sure that the inner points of both of the cups are being sewn down in the center. You're going to sew this with 1/4 inch seam allowance, and you can see as I start to sew that my fabric is still shifting. That's okay. That's why I like to start from the center, just so if it does shift, we can take out the pins, move it over. It's really not a big deal. Just make sure that, again, all 3 layers are being sewn together. We're going to repeat for the other side, of course, starting from the inner cup as well, but we're going to have to flip it over in order to do that. You're going to take the front bottom skirt and you're going to place the bad side of the fabric on top of the good side of the front top skirt. Line up the top seam and put pins throughout the entire thing. Then you're going to sew and serge that seam with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Flip the fabric so both of the good sides of the skirt are facing the same direction, and then flip the front of the dress over so the bad side of the skirt is now facing us. Starting with the bottom skirt, you're going to create a 1/4 inch rolled hem along the entirety of the bottom as well as the top skirt. Place the bad side of the back bottom skirt on top of the good side of the back top skirt. Place pins all along that top seam, then sew and serge so it looks something like this. Now flip the back skirt from the front all the way to the back so the good sides of both the top and bottom back skirt are facing the same direction. Give this a nice press with your iron, and then we're going to make a stitch through both of the layers 1/2 inch from that top seam. If you're not super confident with your sewing, I highly recommend pinning the 2 layers together before you sew. It will just keep your fabric from shifting. Flip the back skirt over, and we're going to do again a 1/4 inch rolled hem on both the bottom and top back skirts. After you sew those rolled hems, we'll now have the front and the back basically done. So now we're going to connect them. Flip the back skirt so the good side is facing the good side of the front skirts. And first, we're going to line up and pin the back bottom skirt and front bottom skirts together. Next, you're going to pin the back top skirt and front top skirt together. Now we're going to make sure that all 4 layers along that side seam are laying flat. I find it easiest if you grab the top skirt layers and then grab the top of the back skirt and just pull it until it is laying flat. Once those layers are flat, you can go ahead and pin everything into place. And then all that's left to do is make sure that those bottom skirt layers are laying flat along the side seam and pin those into place. Since I have some extra fabric where the front skirt connects to the bust, I'm actually just going to take out that top pin so I can trim off the excess fabric. Whenever you're trimming fabric, you just want to make it a very gradual and smooth line to your already existing side seams. With 1/2 inch seam allowance, you're going to sew the side seams together starting from underneath the existing stitch on the back of the skirt. Sew the entire side seam all the way down to the bottom hem. With that hole that we left open, you're going to take your elastic, attach it to a safety pin, and you're going to feed it through that 1/2 inch hole in the back skirt. Before the end of your elastic slips into that hole, we're just going to pin it to the side seam to secure it down. Continue feeding your elastic through until you pull it out of the other side. We're also going to secure that side of the elastic to the side seams, and I was just stretching out the elastic to make the scrunch even along the entire back. Place the good sides of the back strap against the good sides of the front of the dress and make sure that that O-ring is facing upwards. You can pin the entire back strap to the front of the dress. Again, depending on the way you cut your fabric, your back strap might be a little bit longer and need to be tucked underneath the elastic. One side of mine did not need to be tucked, and then the other one needed to be tucked about 1/2 inch. You're gonna unpin the elastic and just make sure that the elastic does not slip through the hole. So I just repinned mine to the back skirt only, and then you can go ahead and continue pinning the back strap to the front of the skirt like normal. Place the elastic on top of the back strap, however much it wants to overlay, and then pin that to the side seam. And then repeat for the other side. You're going to sew the back strap as well as the elastic to the side seam with 1/2 inch seam allowance. Trim off any fraying ends from your front shoulder strap, and then you're gonna grab a pair of tweezers and begin to tuck the strap inside on itself, and we're gonna close that with a few small stitches. And the very last step is connecting the front and back straps together. If you don't know how to sew together adjustable straps, I'm gonna add a link in the description that will walk you through it. And there you go. You have now made yourself a double layered silk mini dress. As always, thank you so much for supporting Midnight Atelier. We have new chic patterns coming soon.